Hi everyone, and welcome to Sports Watch. If you like the content, please press the bell icon for further notifications and like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Ian Garry just defeated Carlos Prates in the main event of UFC Fight Night Kansas. But the lasting impression that every fight fan had about that fight was Prates having Garry on his knees and beating the hell out of him. It was a strange decision from Carlos Prates to not finish Ian Garry in the fifth round and let him stand back up to his feet when he had clearly had him hurt on the ground. Ian Garry was moments, just seconds away from getting finished. He was running away, he got stuck, he got hit. Prates had him hurt badly, and he was almost on the verge of getting finished. It's not such a good look for young Garry. In fact, the man who came out strong after that performance was Carlos Prates. Remember, he's ranked 13 in the world. He has a 4-fight knockout streak going on the UFC, and Ian Garry was ranked higher than him. And he's someone who is supposed to fight for the belt. And he's a backup fighter for the main event versus Bilal Muhammad and Jack Dilla Maddalena. But after a performance like that, the UFC would have to think, is Ian Garry really the man that deserves a title shot after a performance like that? He talks a big game. He always has. He's a talented fighter, but somehow he barely scraps to win. Tonight's performance wasn't different. Yes, Garry looked spectacular with his combinations. He had Prates hurt, but he doesn't have knockout power. He tries to get too fancy with his strikes, with his footwork, with his byplay in the middle of the rounds, and in doing so, he fails to get the finish. And he lets fighters back into the game. He was dominating Carlos Prates for all the 3 rounds in the beginning. He could have finished him, but he was always careful of not getting finished in the process. And that came to bite him in the fourth and the fifth rounds. Prates had him hurt badly at the end of the fourth round, cut him open. And then in the fifth, Ian Garry was all over the place. He was shooting for takedowns, trying to get out of the way, running away from Prates. He was definitely hurt. His hand was definitely hurt from the kicks of Prates. And then when Prates actually landed those big strikes and had him down, landed some heavy ground and pound shots, it was shocking to see him not go for the finish. It was just a couple of punches away. He had Ian Garry on the ropes. Ian Garry was more hurt in that fight than in any other fight that he has had so far in the UFC. He was just a couple of seconds from getting finished. So, should you really want that person to be the next title challenger? A man who gets dominated by a number 13 ranked fighter? Yes, dominated. He's almost finished. It's not good winning 4 rounds to 1 and almost getting finished in the fifth. What else can you say? If Ian Garry is point fighting like Israel Adesanya does, you need to finish some fights as well. Ian Garry so far in his last couple of fights against some very good opponents hasn't been able to finish the fight. He takes a short notice fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov and he loses. Yes, he had Shavkat hurt and had his back. The bottom line is he lost that fight 3 rounds to 2. And once again, he takes another short notice fight against Carlos Prates. He was winning for the majority of the rounds, and then in the fourth and the fifth, Carlos Prates came back and landed strikes of his own and almost finished him. So the who came out of that fight with the bigger accolade? It's Carlos Prates. Ian Garry was probably the biggest ranked fighter that he has ever fought, and it's only his lack of experience in the octagon that prevented him from getting his hands raised. On any other night, against any other opponent, Prates would have finished him after having Garry hurt so badly at the end of the fifth. The Fighting Irish, as they say, the descendants of great fighters from Ireland, as Ian Garry likes to call himself, but he fights extremely carefully. He's not Conor McGregor. He doesn't have the power like Conor had at featherweight or lightweight. Garry is hardly the fighter that Conor once was. He talks a very big game, but he can't back it up, unfortunately. He's trying too many things. Yes, those shots for takedowns were very good, mixing up, but Prates has good takedown defense of his own. And Garry did land some ground and pound, but Prates managed to find himself back on the feet. At one point of time, when Garry was hurt, he was every time shooting for the takedown. So that isn't a great look. Yes, he has one of the smartest fight IQs for any fighter in the division, but he isn't as exciting as he thinks he is. And if you're not finishing fights, if you're not making statements, then how can the fan base turn up to you? Before the fight, what did he say? He was going to finish Carlos Prates within 2 rounds. He was going to make him quit. That was the big narrative. And Carlos Prates almost made him quit in the fifth round. Garry was on his knees, begging to be finished. It's just the inexperience of Carlos Prates that Ian Garry survived. And now he is the official backup fighter for the title. If either of Bilal Muhammad or Jack Della Maddalena gets hurt, then Ian Garry will be fighting for the vacant, or maybe he'll be challenging for the welterweight title. After a performance like that, it's highly controversial, it's highly undeserving. That risk versus reward didn't work out for Garry this time. He thought that he was going to take a fight within 25 days notice, or 21 days notice as they said, and a win would guarantee a title shot. But this win kind of brought more questions than answers. Actually, the stock for Carlos Prates went up higher, despite what the commentators would say, how impressive Ian Garry was in the stand-up with his shots. They can't fool everyone. He was badly hurt at the end of the fifth round. He was badly hurt at the end of the fourth round as well. And it was inexperience of Carlos Prates that prevented him from getting his hands raised. Let me know in the comment section what you feel. And if you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel.